Welcome back to the First and Gold podcast. I'm your host, Sam Golden. Today we're recapping week 6 of the NFL season. Okay, first off, week 5 was insane. That was a bunch of amazing close games, high scoring, whatever. This week, gotta be honest, I thought going into this, maybe there's not a lot to talk about. There was a ton of blowouts. A bunch of teams looked terrible. It's one-sided. But after really going through it a second time, there's some weird things to talk about. So let's just get into it. I do this at the top of every show at this point. Apologies to these fan bases in advance. Sometimes you just can't get to every game, especially if they're pretty irrelevant or you just feel like there's not a lot to talk about. So the games we're not going to be discussing today is 49ers Seahawks, Cardinals Packers, Texans Patriots, Chargers Broncos, and Falcons Panthers. So sorry, but we'll do little blurbs about your teams when we get to the end of the show, which is going to be our week 7 predictions. So I don't know if any of you guys knew this. I went to the Bengals-Giants game with my dad and my uncle and my cousin last night at MetLife Stadium. So let's just talk about that first. Why not? If you can see behind me, I don't know if you can see it. I have a Tom Coughlin bobblehead that they were giving out for free. Why not put it up as a prop? Why not? I think it was because they're celebrating the 100th season, and they had a ton of legends come out at halftime. That was pretty cool. But let's talk about the game. This happens like every other time I go to MetLife, first off. It's just weird and low scoring. My first ever, I'm a Chiefs fan. My first ever Chiefs game I ever went to was Chiefs-Giants in 2017, and that ended 12-9 in overtime. And then last year, I went to Zach Wilson putting up 27, or I think it was 30 against the Texans. It was like 30-6. And then this game, it was 7-0 at halftime. And then it was 10-7 for the longest time. And we were just walking out of the stadium, and someone had to go to the bathroom, so I kind of stayed by the railing for one last play. And luckily, I was able to catch the Chase Brown touchdown at the end. So that led it to be 17-7, the final. Let's talk about the Bengals first off. So obviously, I was with my dad. He was, even though they won, and he's happy that they won, he was pissed off the entire time. And I don't blame him. Think about it. I mean, first of all, he's been a Bengals fan for his entire life. That's almost 60 years. He has never seen his team win a Super Bowl. They have started 2-4 in a season where, for sure, him and most Bengals fans thought they would bounce back after Burrow got hurt and would be a Super Bowl contender. I picked them to win the Super Bowl this year. So you're sitting there at MetLife. It's cold. You watch this boring, shitty offensive game, and you're just watching a team that put up 38 against the Ravens last week go into MetLife and do this. I get his frustrations. I mean, a lot of things we were both discussing the entire time was the conservative play calling of Zach Taylor. Actually, I don't know who calls the play calls. I don't know if it's Zach Taylor or their offense coordinator, but just the coaching in general. The fact that Joe Burrow took up, by the way, crazy to see that in person, that 50-yard rushing touchdown from Joe Burrow of all people, which was funny. My cousin and I were talking about this. The best performers this week, the best runners were the quarterbacks, and the best pass catchers were the running backs. So it was already off to a weird start in that game. But after that touchdown, they didn't do anything. They got extremely conservative. Anytime they were playing that field position game where the Bengals would be put back in, inside their own 20 after a good punt, it just felt like they kind of gave up, waved the white flag. Anytime it was 3rd and long, they would just do a draw play or a screen, or, the Giants' defensive line was just dominating the entire time, getting to Burrow so quickly. And that's what I just said before. The Bengals were able to put up 38 points against the Ravens and only 17 against the Giants. And, I told my dad I don't want him to panic too much about the offense, because I'm going to give some props to the Giants here. I know they had a rough game offensively, but the Giants' defense is absolutely better than the Ravens' defense this year. They lead the league in sacks. They were getting pressure all night. Dexter Lawrence is phenomenal. Brian Burns is phenomenal. They were covering Jamar and T. Higgins pretty well. I don't think either of them had like 56 yards. I got to check the stats again, but they were pretty much shut down all night. I know Jamar had like one big catch, but, I got to give props to the Giants' defense. And yes, I guess you could make you could try to defend Zach Taylor, whoever's calling the plays, saying that, look, this is the first time in a long time that the Bengals defenses look good. Why not just try to win this game ugly, not make any major mistakes, and if it's 3rd and long, maybe just take the punt. Daniel Jones, I actually have it on camera. Maybe I'll put it up from my view. I'll send Al the video. I was able to catch the Daniel Jones interception on my phone. It looked even worse in person. I don't know what he was doing there. He was just Giants fans in the vicinity were all agreeing, just take the sack. And you could put up 3. Why not? You're already down there inside the 10. You need points. It was a low-scoring game. And Daniel Jones just pulls a Will Levis. I'm wearing my Alex Smith jersey today. And as a Chiefs fan, I was thinking to myself, like, even when the Chiefs weren't as good without Mahomes and we were more relevant, like, at least we had an Alex Smith who, if there was one thing you could count on, was not to make a super dumb mistake every game and not be this type of Daniel Jones, Will Levis quarterback. Yes, he was boring and maybe didn't take enough chances, but he was at least keeping the ball safe, and it's just so frustrating to watch these quarterbacks sometimes make these decisions when you don't need to be the hero, especially, what was that, in the first quarter? So the Giants, they needed to run the ball more. The Bengals are one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and Tyrone Tracy was having a solid night. And I felt like he got a decent amount of carries, but you should have just kept running it. I like the Daniel Jones option run plays. Those were working sometimes. It just felt like both teams were a little bit lost in the play calling, and it was more of a defensive match. So, odd game to watch in person. Definitely happy for my dad that the Bengals got the win. It keeps their season alive. Luckily, they play the Browns next week. And the Giants, I gave them props last week. I still think their defense is, honestly, could be top 10 in the NFL. But Daniel Jones, that's the factor. Top 3 most important things for a team. You need the best quarterback. You need a good quarterback. You need a good offensive line. And you need to be able to get to the quarterback. They only have one of those things. Their offensive line is mediocre, and Daniel Jones is just not. Look, he's been good for most part this season, but just this game was a disaster, especially against the Bengals defense. So, I don't know. Let's move back to our second London game of the year, Bears-Jaguars. And let's talk about some Caleb Williams, because I mentioned him a few weeks back, how I'm not worried about him. I think this was week 3 or 4 when he was still struggling. And I talked about how I was not worried about Caleb Williams. And people need to give these rookie quarterbacks more time. I think everybody just wants to see it fast-paced, them to be amazing off the bat. I mean, we've been spoiled with some of these quarterbacks that have looked great, such as Jaden Daniels this year, Patrick Mahomes, of course. So I think a lot of people are impatient when it comes, especially to these first overall picks. But to see Caleb take a normal approach to his rookie year and genuinely progress week after week after week, it's refreshing to see. It's nice. I'm happy for him. He threw 4 touchdowns in this game, only 1 interception. He was 23 of 29, and that was a big issue for him in the first 3 or 4 weeks, was his completion percentage. And he wasn't confident. I think now he's used to how his offensive line is playing. His defense, of course, the Bears' defense is one of the best as well. They had plenty of turnovers in this game like they always do. But it's nice to see Caleb Williams gain his confidence, even if you're going to say, well, they beat the Panthers and the Jaguars. Okay, it's still a rookie quarterback in the NFL with all that pressure on him, going out there, especially in a London game. Maybe he's jet-lagged. Going out there throwing 4 touchdown passes. That's a sign of a great quarterback coming up. So Bears fans, I hope you know that this is a good sign. I know they have some tough games coming up. They play the Commanders soon. That's going to be a good one. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how Caleb Williams, if he keeps progressing, maybe he plays a better defense. Let's see how he plays there. But overall, 35-16 in London. I mean, that's great. The Jaguars, we've been through the Jaguars a million times. I think almost regardless, you got to fire Doug Peterson soon. And you could put some of the blame on Trevor Lawrence. His confidence is completely shot as well, but you could just see it on the sideline. Nobody's talking to each other. They're all just got the 1,000-mile stare, including Doug Peterson. It's not a good look right now for the Jaguars. And, man, what are they, 1-5? And they play the Patriots in London next week. I mean, especially if they lose that game. Doug Peterson's out of there, so tough look for the Jaguars. It's just one of those teams. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, it's one of those teams where if they're bad, it doesn't really make that much difference in the grand scheme of the NFL because they're such a small market team that hasn't had really many good seasons. I personally like the Jaguars, But I just feel like their terrible season is going to be swept under the rug. And there's going to be conversations about Trevor Lawrence for sure in the offseason. But 1-5, that's a bad look. You got the Patriots next week. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about a game that was pretty close up until the fourth quarter when the Bucs pulled away. This is Bucs Saints in New Orleans. The Bucs put up 51 points, 51-27. Let's talk about the Bucs first. Their offense, I'm shocked. It's funny. Look, I'm not going to complain as a Chiefs fan because I have nothing to complain about. We're 5-0. We're back-to-back Super Bowl champions, of course. But there is like 1% of me that's a little frustrated to see teams like the Bucs when Baker Mayfield goes out and throws for 3 interceptions and they put up 51 points in New Orleans, and then the Chiefs played the Saints the week before and they put up 26 and they're settling for field goals. I don't get it. That's the NFL for you. I don't understand. Chris Godwin's like the wide receiver 1 in fantasy right now. Like, how are you supposed to plan for that? How do you know that's going to happen? I don't know. Props to the Bucs. They're figuring it out. Baker Mayfield has been more confident than ever. Him and Kirk Cousins are on fire right now in the NFC South. And I knew this was going to happen. I don't remember if I said this in week 2 when the Saints were still good or if it was week 3, but I said that we were going to look back at this. I wanted so badly to give the Saints their props, and I did for the time being, but I said I could totally see it being a thing where you look back in December and you're like, remember when the Saints were just really good randomly for 2 weeks and then they collapse after that? This is exactly what's happening. They're finally falling back into place. Dennis Allen is one of the worst coaches in the NFL. I still stand by that. They're 2-4 now. How do you lose 4 straight? I don't get it. It's just they've been such a disaster since Drew Brees left. Just not only with their contracts, but this is just another wasted season. Okay, let's talk about the game that was presumed to be the game of the week. Since it was such a sloppy week, I think it's still definitely a top 3 game. It was very solid. Commanders-Ravens. So let's talk about the losing team first. The Ravens won 30-23. Let's talk about the Commanders. I would give the Commanders a B+ for this game. Maybe even an A-. Jaden Daniels, no turnovers in Baltimore. They had a turnover on the first drive as well against Baltimore. That almost set the tone. And if you're a Commanders fan, totally would not be worried. What you did in this game, and I said this in the preview last week, if you just kept it close, even if you lost, I would still be confident for the rest of the season. You proved that you are a good team. Yes, the Ravens are one of the best teams in the NFL, so it's going to be hard to keep up. But you held your own. You held your own, and the Ravens are one of the best offenses in the NFL. The Commanders' defense, although they've had flashes this season, they're still not the most talented, so I'm not shocked that they gave up 30 points. Overall, for the Commanders, it's rare. I know there's no such thing as a moral victory technically, but if this is the closest thing to a moral victory, I believe. And it reminds me of when the Chiefs had Mahomes in his rookie season starting in 2018 against the Rams. I feel like Commanders fans probably feel the same way after this loss, like I did after that loss. So overall, I'm not worried. I mean, Jaden Daniels, 2 touchdowns. Let's talk about the Ravens. I said this last week. They could easily be like a 1 or 2 win team. They could be undefeated. They've just had such a wild season so far. And finally, they're coming into their own. They're gaining more confidence as the week goes on. This is their 4th straight win. As a Chiefs fan, first of all, thank God we played them in week 1 before they fully found out how to utilize Derrick Henry. I said this way back in the week 1 recap. I didn't understand how after the first drive they weren't giving it to Henry a lot more. But man, I mean, this is exactly what they wanted out of their offense coming into this season. This is what everybody was worried about, and it's coming to fruition now. Derrick Henry, 2 touchdown game, another 100-yard performance. Just that is a compliment to Lamar Jackson, especially when Zay Flowers is going off. Mark Andrews finally had a good game yesterday. So, man, I mean, thank God as a Chiefs fan we play them in week 1 because if we play them right now, I don't think the Chiefs beat them. I really don't. Okay, let's move on to probably one of the only other close, solid games. Colts Titans. So, all right, I said this to my dad while I was watching the 1 o'clock games. I never mentioned this on the podcast. I promise I'm not just saying this because now the game ended to 20-17, but I've had this in my head for like 5 years. It's a weird thing. Nobody's going to care about this, but for whatever reason, and maybe go fact check me on this. I'm sure there's been some weird scores, but for whatever reason, I feel like whenever the Colts and the Titans play each other, it's always the most common scores Like, it always ends 27-24, 24-20, 20-17, 17-14, 21-20. Like, I don't know what it is. And it still feels like weird stuff happens in these games. But I guess fact check me on this. It's a stupid thing that I've thought of for a while. And the fact that they ended up scoring 20-17, the most common score in NFL history, I just thought it was funny. Anyways, let's move on to the actual parts of the game where the Colts won 2017, like I just said. It was 17-13, third down. And once again, I told my dad, I was like, this game can't be 17-16. That's too weird of a score for Colts Titans. So 3rd and 11, Joe Flacco will find a way to make this a touchdown and be 2017. That's exactly what happened. He lobbed it up to Michael Pittman. They take the lead. And this is just what the Colts have been the last few years. They just go out there. I feel like they always start 0-2, and then they're 2-3, and then they just kind of middle their way to like 8 or 9 wins. And Flacco's kind of that perfect quarterback right now to get you a couple exciting wins until inevitably Anthony Richardson comes back. You probably lose some more games, unfortunately. He gets injured again, and then you go back up to 8 and 9. That's just how I feel about the Colts. I don't feel so strongly about the AFC South in general. Maybe except for the Texans, of course. But the only real takeaway I had from this game was, I don't know if anybody saw it. I'm sure if you're online, you obviously saw it. But if you didn't see it, Will Levis has continually given us meme after meme after meme after video clip after goofy actions on the field, off the field, every single week. And this week, I didn't think he could top it. This week, he goes and dives out of bounds. And, you know, sometimes if you're getting pushed out of bounds, whatever your momentum carries you, you might hit into somebody, knock something over. But this time, poor guy, man. He blew out the knees of like a 60-year-old ball boy. I don't get it. I don't get how he has this luck. Or would you call it luck? What would you even call it at this point? I don't know what type of player he is. Jameis Winston is my number one comparison to Will Levis at this point. But man, I feel so bad for the guy. There's been times where like people get seriously injured on the sideline, and this was one of them. And they actually had to stop the game to put the guy on the stretcher. I don't know what's going on in Will Levis's head. Like, does he know that he's being memed every week? Because I know Titans fans are used to it already, probably sick of it. You know what, Titans fans? If you're listening to this podcast, and I know I said earlier in the offseason you don't exist, but if you do exist and you're listening to this podcast, just enjoy the ride, because at least you're not losing in like a Bryce Young Panthers way, where it's just disgusting and boring and depressing. I mean, this might be depressing, but at least it's Will Levis. Like, this is how Bucs fans felt with Jameis Winston. Like, at least you have something to laugh at every week. Like, I'm trying to find a positive here, because I could go into all the bullshit about Calvin Ridley getting 8 targets and 0 receptions. Like, how the hell are you not utilizing him more? Maybe it's a Calvin Ridley issue. I don't know what's going on with the Titans this year, but they're just not, like, Tony Pollard is your best player right now, which I was not expecting going into the season, to be honest. But okay, I've talked way too much about the Titans in week 6 of the season, so let's move on. All right. Eagles, they beat the Browns 20-16. Good for you. You guys have a winning record, but I am sure Eagles fans can agree with me. It's one of the worst feeling winning records of any team this year, because you just haven't shown anything special since two seasons ago at this point. And I'm sick of it, solely because of Nick Sirianni. I think it was because the Eagles fans were chanting, go Sirianni, or Sirianni has to go, something like that, you know, to get him fired, which I've said for weeks now, he should be fired. Because of those chants, they narrowly win by 4, and then there's a clip of him, like, chirping at the fans in the front row and, like, yelling at them. This is the head coach, guys, of the Eagles. And now if there's any team for head coach to act like this, it's probably Philly, but this guy's such an asshole. He's such a sociopath. He's so unaware of his surroundings. I've called this guy a sociopath for years. He's the least likable coach in the NFL. I don't understand how he still has a job. He was not responsible for the Eagles Super Bowl run. I don't care what anyone says. It wasn't him. This guy. Seriously, I'm so sick of Nick Sirianni. Eagles fans can totally agree with me. They have so much talent. You're putting up 20 points at home against the Browns. And all you have to show for it are 2 nice long touchdown plays. That's it. No other highlights. I mean, look, luckily Jalen Hurts finally played his best game and had no turnovers, which sure, that's great. But 4-point win against the Browns, that's unacceptable. I don't care if you're 3-2. I don't care. Just like Cowboys fans, just like, name another team, Chargers fans, even though, you have 3 wins this season, maybe you'll make the playoffs, you know how it's going to end. Because your team's dysfunctional, and you need Nick Sirianni to go. And the fact that he's acting like this, he's acted like this before. I mean, he's acted like this against opposing fan bases. I remember when he went to Arrowhead last year, he was yelling at us after he beat us in their Super Bowl, even though we beat him in the real Super Bowl. So shut the fuck up, Nick Sirianni. You're ruining these young guys' careers in Devonta Smith. Like, no one wants to be coached like that by this guy. That actually makes the Super Bowl run 2 years ago even more impressive. I don't know if the players kept up with this. Howie Roseman must just be, like, in a trance with this guy, because I don't know how he doesn't realize that he needs to go as soon as possible. I don't get it. Maybe they're like best friends. Maybe they have a deal. I don't know what's going on. So let's flip it to, believe it or not, some organization that's even more dysfunctional in the Cleveland Browns. Browns fans, if you're listening, I'm sure you could also agree with me on this one. You're probably the most dysfunctional organization in the NFL. You have to be. The fact that Deshaun Watson's still out there, the fact that the cope is insane right now with the Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski saying week after week in the press conferences, nope, Deshaun Watson's our guy. He gives us the best chance at winning. No, he doesn't. This game just frustrated me with these two organizations going at it. I don't understand how both of these teams are on one side sticking with Nick Sirianni, on the other side sticking with Deshaun Watson. The cope's insane because you lost out on millions and millions of dollars on the Brown side with Deshaun Watson. And obviously in the back of their heads, I couldn't imagine them not thinking, yes, of course we fucked up. And no, Deshaun Watson's not our guy. But they're still saying it. Just be honest. We'd all respect you. The media would respect you. The fans would respect you if you just were honest and said, look, we made a mistake. We're just going to try to start Winston from now on. You saw how it was with Joe Flacco last year. It was so much better. You made the playoffs. I don't want to get that mad. It's too much. I'm getting hot in here. This shirt's tight. I'm sick of it. Steelers, Raiders. I really have nothing to talk about the Raiders except for my 10-7 prediction. Listen, I know there's a lot of Raiders fans out there that were happy. I was so positive about them. And I really thought they were better than this. And Aiden O'Connell comes in. He's just as bad as Gardner Minshew. And you guys have the worst defense in the NFL, by far. It's just bar none horrific. The fact that you made Najee Harris look like prime Jim Brown out there, prime Marshawn Lynch. Najee Harris, the guy who runs through snow for a living. There's so many dysfunctional teams. I feel like I'm watching week 17 yesterday. It's week 6. How are these teams going to move on for the season? I don't get it. I feel like half the teams in the league have given up already. I knew this was going to be a bounce back game. I didn't think it was going to be this dominant. It's kind of weird. It's like the Giants. Whenever the Steelers put up 30 points, it doesn't seem right. Like, I just can't picture them putting it up, but they put up 32. That's just a testament to how bad the Raiders defense is. You know, this is going to sound bad. I'm sorry, Steelers fans. I'm not intimidated. I'm just not. I think this is probably Justin Fields' best game of the season. I ragged on him last week because I felt like he still didn't look very comfortable in a lot of situations. He was 14 of 24 in this game. That's fine. And he ran very well. Najee Harris did really well. George Pickens, by the way, huge attitude problem. I would look out for him. He might be a trade candidate because you could tell the Steelers organization looks at him as a wide receiver 2, not a 1. Okay, let's move on to our last game we're going to cover, which is the craziest one of all, the funniest one of all, the most blowoutiest of all. Is that even a word? I don't know. But the Lions go into Dallas, they get their revenge after last year, and they just dance on their grave, 47-9. Speaking of dancing on their grave, if we can find the clip, there was one of the funniest clips online yesterday of, it was a female fan for the Cowboys. She was like on her knees throwing up on the concourse, and then this Lions guy just comes over and starts grittying just right in front of her, just like dancing on her grave basically. And it was one of the funniest things I've seen. If you're a Lions fan, have at it, man. You deserve it. You've been through so much pain. To go into Dallas and just beat up on them like this, especially after the debacle of that penalty last year, have your fun. Have your fun. You could tell the fans off the field and the players on the field were just messing with the Cowboys in this game. They were doing trick plays. They're throwing a Penei Sewell. Sam Laporta was having fun. Jared Goff had another great game. Jared Goff has only had 7 incompletions in the last 2 games. And he had 3 touchdowns in this one, once again. So the Lions are having a lot of fun right now. I really hope it doesn't start being destroyed because, of course, we got to talk about Aiden Hutchinson, who suffered a season-ending injury. I think it was a tibia. And, man, Al, I will not make you throw up the video. If you guys are that interested, just go look it up yourself. It was probably a top 3 to 5 most gruesome leg injury I think I've ever seen in the NFL. I mean, obviously you got like Joe Theismann back in the day. You have Alex Smith. If you go to basketball, if you guys remember college basketball, Kevin Ware, that was like one of the worst ones. This was up there. If you do a slow-mo, the way his leg bends, I don't want to describe it. If you guys really want to watch it, just go watch it. But devastating for the kid, man. Like Aiden Hutchinson, he was off to such a great start this season. He's been a great player. This is his 3rd year. And that's going to be a big piece missing now. I don't know if there's a veteran guy. Maybe they can go sign to just get some reps and be a little bit better as a backup. But, man, that's just... Like, the fact that the Lions had probably one of their best games, honestly, in their franchise's history in the last, 30 years yesterday. And at what cost? Well, it cost you Aiden Hutchinson, and that just sucks. Like, it just sucks. So, what a week 6. Wacky, weird, a lot of off-the-field videos that I'm referencing because there's some crazy shit happening. I went to a game, so a lot of stuff. But we're done covering it for now. Comment down below what your favorite moment was from week 6 because there was a lot of weird stuff. Let's move on, though, to week 7 of the NFL season. I can't believe it's already week 7. That just doesn't make sense. Halloween is in a couple weeks. Just the season's flying by. But let's do it. Let's jump into it. We have a Thursday night debacle because I don't think the game itself is going to be any good. But I understand why it's on primetime. It's Broncos Saints. And the only reason it's on primetime is because Sean Payton is finally returning to New Orleans for the first time. Man, here's the thing. I don't know if Derek Carr is going to start. And honestly, I don't know if it makes a difference. I really don't. Because the Broncos defense is still very good. They lost this past week against the Chargers. But Bo Nix in a rowdy environment. But it is Sean Payton. He wants revenge. So I'm having a tough time picking the winner of this game. It's going to be hard to imagine the Saints losing 5 straight, but I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to pick the Broncos to go to 4-3, which is crazy. I don't want to, but that's genuinely who I think is the slightly better team right now. So I'm going to pick the Broncos to win it. I don't know if Chris Olave is going to be out in this game. So yeah, I'm going to pick the Broncos to win. It's going to be one of those ugly Thursday nights. I'm going to go with 16-14. I think it's going to be low scoring. Let's go to London. Once again, this is our final London game, and it's an ugly one. It's Jags Patriots. I'm not sure what they did here with this one. It's going to be disgusting. But maybe Mac Jones comes in for a revenge game? Trevor Lawrence gets benched? I don't know. I don't know what happens. But Jags fans, listen up. I'm not going to be too negative. I'm actually going to pick you guys to win. If you lose, you're firing Doug Peterson. We all know that. But I'm going to pick the Jaguars to win this game. The Patriots are just terrible. I don't know how they beat the Bengals in week 1. So, yep, Jaguars winning this one 23-13. All right, let's move on to the 1 o'clock slate. Very, very similar to Commanders-Ravens last week. Have absolutely no idea how this is at 1 o'clock. A fantastic matchup. Al, this is a big one for you. It's the Vikings hosting the Lions. What a game. What a matchup. Sam Darnold versus Jared Goff. It's going to be high scoring. Take the over in this one. But I'm so sorry, Vikings fans. And this is not me saying you guys are going to be worse or start going downhill. But the Lions are genuinely the best team in the NFC right now. And I think they keep on rolling. This is a big divisional matchup for the top. I'm going to pick the Lions to win this 30-27. Bills, Titans. Buffalo hosts the Titans now. Especially, we're filming this on Monday. If the Bills don't beat the Jets, I think for sure they bounce back in this game. But I think they are going to beat the Jets. And the Titans are a very easy team to play against, especially at home. I think Josh Allen will have a very easy day. I don't see this as one of those weird games that the Bills blow, surprisingly, although I could see the argument for it. So I'll pick the Bills to win this pretty comfortably, 34-17. All right, the Colts host the Dolphins. Now, if Anthony Richardson comes back, I feel like the organization is going to be inclined to start him, although I think Joe Flacco is the right decision right now. He's playing much better offense. He just won you a big game in Tennessee. And the Dolphins are still beat up right now. So I don't think, just like how the Dolphins are surely not going to rush Tua back, I don't think you got to rush Anthony Richardson back right now. So let's pick the Colts, hoping they have Joe Flacco. I think it'll be a close one, though, because, I don't know, I feel like they always make it close. So I'll pick the Colts to win it 21-17. Okay, another very good game, very intriguing. Two good offenses. Falcons Seahawks. Ooh, now, the rough part about this is if the Seahawks lose, that's 4 in a row. And now they got to go into a rowdy environment in Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is on fire right now. The Seahawks defense isn't that great. Geno Smith, I don't know if he's going to lose his confidence. He's got to go up against Grady Jarrett and Matt Judon, a good pass rush. So, man, I don't want the Seahawks season to keep falling downhill and lose 4 straight, but I just got to pick the Falcons because I think they're the better team right now. So I could see it going either way, but I'm going to pick the Falcons to win it 27-23. Another great game. All right, this is a good Week 7 slate, just looking at it. Packers hosting the Texans. This is all at 1 o'clock, too. Packers-Texans in Green Bay. Jordan Love is definitely getting his footing. Didn't talk about the Cardinals game this week, but he was phenomenal. I think he had 4 touchdown passes, right? So this is interesting. Jordan Love versus CJ Stroud. I think I had this as an honorable mention on my top 10 games of the year list. 2 quarterbacks that had great seasons last year going at it. But oh my gosh, I don't know this is a coin flip for me. I think I'm going to go ahead and pick the Texans right now. I like the Texans. I compared them to the Chiefs last week. So yeah, let's go with the Texans to win this game very close. I'm going to pick it overtime as well. 27-24. Bengals Browns in Cleveland. Now, surprisingly, I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow has a losing record against the Browns. They've actually struggled. But, I mean, it's still make or break, even though they beat the Giants. It's make or break. The Bengals have to win this game to keep their season alive. The Browns are a disaster right now. They're still starting Deshaun Watson, so I got to give the Bengals the benefit of the doubt. If they lose this game, they don't deserve to be in the race for the playoffs. So they got to win this one. I'm picking the Bengals. It's the Bengals, so it always has to be a heart attack. So I'll pick the Bengals to win it 24-19. Final 1 o'clock game back at MetLife. It's the Giants and the Eagles. Now, I am rooting for the Giants to win this game because I want Nick Sirianni fired. I want things to start being dysfunctional. I'm sorry, Eagles fans, cover your ears, but I want everything to be blown up there because I think they deserve it. They need they need to tear it down. Not their offense, but they need to tear it down with the coaching. I already talked about that. So, upset alert. I assume that the Eagles are favored, so maybe put up the upset alert here. I'll pick the Giants to win this one in an ugly one, 18-16. All right, and then we hop to our 4 o'clock games. We got 3 of them. Let's start with Rams-Raiders, battle of the West Coast teams. And I think that the Raiders defense is just so bad. The Rams will start getting healthier and healthier as the weeks go on, finally, after this bye. So I'll give the Rams the benefit of the doubt. They've lost a couple close games. They're still not as bad as their 1-4 record. So I'm going to pick the Rams to win this one 24-17. Commanders Panthers is up next. A 4 o'clock game in Washington. That makes no sense, but let's do it. I think for sure the Commanders win this game. The Panthers have now proven with Andy Dalton that they still suck. And the Andy Dalton, mist has gone. So I think the Commanders are just flat out the better team. And they're going to win this game 38-22. And then the final 4 o'clock game. This could certainly be the first loss of the season for the Chiefs. It's a tough one. But luckily, Patrick Mahomes has their number. It's Chiefs 49ers. Amazing matchups this week, week 7. Chiefs 49ers in San Francisco. Yeah, I got to keep rolling with the Chiefs, although I could totally see them losing this game. I think there's a little bit of a defensive mismatch here, but I'm curious to see how Brock Purdy bounces back after that Super Bowl performance where he was solid but didn't quite get it done in overtime against Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie. Very interesting matchups all around the board. Kelsey versus Kittle, you name it. So, yeah, can the Chiefs go out there and give one of their best offensive game plans finally? Because this is a big one. I know it's the NFC, but they want to keep their streak alive against the 49ers. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt. I think it's going to be really close. I'll pick the Chiefs to win it 23-20. All right, Sunday Night Football, Steelers, Jets. Now, if the Jets lose to the Bills tonight, I think this is the game they tear it all down. I know they already fired Saleh, but I think this is the game where all the fingers are going to be pointed directly at Aaron Rodgers because the Steelers defense is going to give him fits. It's in Pittsburgh. This is going to be a tough one for Jets fans to swallow, but I'm sorry. I'm picking the Steelers, and I think it's going to be ugly, and it's going to be a tough one to watch. So I'm going to pick the Steelers to win it 20-16. There you go, 4-point game. And then we're back to the Monday night doubleheader. I'm not sure why. I don't really like it, but here we are. Bucks, Ravens, another great matchup in Tampa Bay. Lamar Jackson versus Baker Mayfield, two of the top 5 MVP candidates right now. Unfortunately, the Bucks defense has kind of folded the last couple weeks. They have not looked great. I think the Ravens keep on rolling. It'll be fun for the most part. High scoring, take the over, but I'm going to pick the Ravens to go into Tampa and beat them 31-26. Finally, Cardinals Chargers. Yeah, let's just throw this on Monday Night Football for no reason whatsoever. I will pick the Cardinals to win this one. I think they're just so inconsistent and unpredictable where they're going to suck one week and then they're going to be great. And I'm sure I'm going to bench Marvin Harrison in fantasy this week and he's going to go off. And I'll just want to die. Anyways, let's pick the Cardinals to win it 26-20. And there you go. What a week 7 slate. I'm so excited. It's like we had a great week 5, and then you kind of took a week off with week 6, here and there. There's kind of some man moments. And then we got a great slate coming up. So I'm very excited. The season's in full gear. We're in mid-October already. I'm very excited for this. So, how many times have I said excited? I've said it too many times, but that's how I feel. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for all the support as well, especially on TikTok. Go check out our TikTok page at First and Gold Pod, our Instagram as well, same handle. And just remember to like and subscribe, comment down below, interact with us in our videos. We got another tier list coming out soon. Very excited for that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next video. Goodbye.